everyone. Oh, thank you so much for sharing where you're tuning in from. All right, I think we're ready to get started. Okay, so welcome to From the Collections. We are really excited to bring this program back. We started this program last year as one of our virtual programs just in response to the pandemic. One thing that happened for us, for Kona Historical Society, and being closed for the pandemic was we got to get back in touch with our archives and discover some new stories that were worthy of sharing. So we did a series last fall that some of you may have attended, where we talked about bread and baking. We talked about donkey baseball at Kona Waina. We talked about the Kona field system. And those are all still online. So if you like this program and you want more like it, feel free to check us out online or on YouTube. My name's Audrey. I am the Public Programs Manager here at Kona Historical Society, and today I'm joined by two really excellent guest speakers, Mandy Johnson-Campbell, who is an Interpretive Specialist at Kahakai National Historic Trail, and Tanya Souza-Lizama, who is an Archaeologist at Kahakai National Historic Trail. Before we begin, I want to give a big thank you to everyone who made this program possible. As per usual, a program like this involves so many staff members at KHS and their expertise, but also so many community members. The things we're going to share from the archive, some are 45 years in the making due to the contributions of our communities. So to everyone who made it possible today, we want to say mahalo. This program is recorded, so and shared on our social media platforms. So if you have to leave early, or if you missed any part of it, or if you know someone who would like to see this program, it will be available immediately on our Facebook, and it will also be uploaded later on to our website and our YouTube. So you can always check that out. If you're able, if you're on Zoom and you're able to stay till the end, we'd really like for you to stay all the way to the end, because when we close out the meeting, there will be a very, very short survey, and we'd love your feedback on the program today. I'm going to start with a brief introduction on the research station at Kona Historical Society. And then Mandy and Tanya are going to share with us the work that they did and the work that they are continuing to do. Around 1:30, we're going to begin a Q&A session and a talk story. Oh, it's so good to see who's in the chat. Thank you for sharing. So if you guys have questions throughout the program, go ahead and drop them in the chat. We'll get to your questions at the end, but we'll make sure we get to as many as possible. I don't want anyone forgetting them. So as soon as you have a question, go ahead and put it in there. Let's see. So I want to talk about our archive at Kona Historical Society, because that's kind of the theme of today's program. So some of you may remember last year we launched a fundraiser following our From the Collection series. We launched a fundraiser in November as part of Giving Tuesday, where we asked for donations to be able to sort of remodel our archive, our research center at Kona Historical Society. At the time, we were still closed to the public, but we were getting ready to reopen, and we have since reopened. That fundraising effort was really successful, and we were able to purchase new desks, new chairs, a new computer, along with an online catalog system, so you're able to search things on your own when you come in. We also were able to repaint the walls, move everything around so there's a little more space to pull out documents, pull out photos that are interesting or relevant to the research that you want to do. And then we reopened. What Mandy and Tanya didn't know, they came to research with us last spring. What they didn't know was they were actually some of our very first researchers to use that space. And they were doing such a meaningful project. So I knew when I met them and found out what they were doing that we had to include them in From the Collections in the fall. I wanted to quickly share, for anyone who's interested, our website. Let's see. Our website, which has, oh, whoops. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, our website, which has all the information about how to visit our archive if you are interested. So this is our landing page, Kona Historical Society. If you go here to our collections, you're going to see an overview of our collections. You'll see here a list of what kinds of things we have in our archive, what kinds of things you could expect to find. And then down here, this little request to visit the archive button is how you're gonna make your request. We are open regularly every Friday, and we have been pretty full most weeks. So definitely if you want to get your request in so we can get you scheduled. There is a fee that goes to help to continue to preserve and maintain the collection. It takes a lot to keep it stable, to keep it protected. And so we really appreciate the support in continuing to do that. Also exciting in the development of our collections and our access to research has been our online projects. So some grants have allowed us to promote or to allow it to open access to certain things online, and we are continuing to do that. Here we go. We're continuing to do that, but right now what we have up, this just went up, I think last month, we have these tax ledgers that are up, and you can click through them. If you know what years you're looking for, they're all listed here. You can open them up and take a look, see if you can find who you're looking for. And then up next will be our oral history collection, or some of our oral history collection. We have a lot of oral histories, so that'll be there too. So if anyone's interested, make sure you check us out online, and if you have questions, let me know and I'm happy to tell you more. All right. So I want to, before I turn the time over to our guest speakers, I want to give a quick introduction to them both. Today we've got two employees at the Ala Kahakai National Historic Trail with us. The first is Mandy Johnson-Campbell. Mandy currently leads the interpretation and education program for Ala Kahakai National Historic Trail. Prior to her new position in interpretation, she was an archaeologist for the trail and Koloko Honokohau National Historic Park for 12 years. She has worked for the National Park Service in Cultural Resource Management since 2002. Okay, sorry, I got a few people that I'm admitting. Okay, since 2002, she is humbled and grateful to live in Hawaii, where she can support the preservation of cultural landscapes and share their importance. Mandy lives in Holualoa, Ahupua'a with her family. Our other guest speaker is Tanya Souza-Lizama, who is a community archaeologist with the Ala Kahakai National Historic Trail of the National Park Service. Tanya is raised in Kealakekua, and she spent her childhood appreciating the rich history and culture of South Kona. Tanya has spent the last 15 years working in the field of historic preservation for the private, nonprofit, and government sectors. Today, she is dedicated to working alongside various community groups and individuals towards the preservation, protection, and stewardship of trails and culturally significant places. Tanya currently resides in Koloko with her daughter, where the two spend their spare time exploring and volunteering monthly at Koloko Fish Pond. All right, so Mandy and Tanya, you two are welcome to begin. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight you all so everyone can see you.
Aloha kako. Thank you so much for inviting us, Audrey. I hope everybody can hear me okay. I have a bit of a weird version of Zoom, the browser version, so sometimes it's a little tricky, but thank you so much for inviting us, and it's really exciting to share our work, some of the projects we're doing, and to be able to partner with Kona Historical Society in doing some of this research. And I highly recommend it. We had such a great experience there in that beautiful facility, and great resources, and of course your staff was super helpful, and it really added to our project. So thank you so much, and we're so happy to be here. I'd like to just maybe start with a little bit of background about who we are at the trail and what we do. And a little bit about how our research at Kona Historical Society helped to support our work. So we can go to the next slide. So we are a National Park Service unit, Ala Kahakai National Historic Trail. We are designated in the year 2000 and to preserve and protect the network of ancient and historic trails and pathways that link them. In the corridor that you can see stretching from Upolu Point up north, it's kind of the tan colored corridor, down the leeward coast, around Kauleolī, and then up to the northern side of White Volcanoes National Park. The corridor goes through about 175 miles, 6 districts, 220 ahupua'a, It runs through all 4 of the national parks on island and also state parks and county parks. It's about half and half public and private lands that we administer the trail on. And of course, along with the trails, there are numerous vahikupuna and cultural landscapes, protected areas, vahipana, storied landscapes that we work with as well in their preservation. We are part of the National Trails System. We are not, in fact, in the Gulf of Mexico. We are actually in the Pacific. So this system has a network of national scenic trails, historic trails, and national recreational trails. And Kahakai is very unique in that we are one of the only ones that preserves an ancient trail that is the exact corridor that people have walked for hundreds and hundreds of years. So that's really special and something different in this system. Okay. The Kahakai, the vision for the Kahakai was based in tons of community meetings and input, and I think there were over 15 public meetings around the island to gather input about what this trail should be, what it should strive to do. And the vision that came out of those processes were to protect, preserve, and reestablish the ancient coastal Aulaloa, the long trail around the island, and historic trails and linking trails, to facilitate access for stewardship and traditional cultural practice, to build capacity for descendant-led community-based stewardship through partnerships, support community-based economic development, and then of course to share the stories and history and support education for our communities in and on the trail and for visitors as well. And as I mentioned, partnerships are a very important part of what we do. We're a very small staff with a very large area that we work in. So our partners are very, very important and doing such good work all throughout the corridor. And those include Ohana, nonprofits, different levels of people working towards the public good and trail preservation and conservation. And then we work with a variety of government partners as well. So at the state and county and federal level, including all the national parks and state parks. And we also have an MOU with the state and the county, which helps facilitate a lot of the work that we are able to do out there in the field and with our partners. Next. And one of the tools in our toolkit for trail preservation is to work with community and partners to be able to purchase lands for conservation. So when there are development stresses or impending uses of land that don't work towards trail preservation or cultural landscape preservation, we've worked in a number of places, including North Kohala, Ka'u, to support PONC purchases or other purchases of land through Hawaii Island Land Trust or Trust for Public Land to be able to conserve those areas for open space and preservation. Another tool is to work with landowners to create conservation easements to protect public rights of way. And then as a very last resort, and only at the community's request, we can also apply for funding to acquire lands for National Park Service ownership. Next. And that was the case here in South Kona at Kauleolī. This is the Kahakai's first and only acquisition of land. It's a 59-acre parcel along the coast, just south of Ki'ilai in South Kona. and the Pu'uhonua Ohonau National Park. And this was a partnership conservation effort led by the community in response to some potential development that would have changed the whole character of the area. So we were the Park Service, led by the community, and then also in partnership with the Trust for Public Land, was able to purchase this area so that that didn't happen, and to protect the amazing wahikupuna that is preserved here, including the Alanui Trail, the Hawaiian Kingdom Road that you can see on that top picture is the vertical line through the vegetation there. As I said, it borders Pu'uhonua. And then also for this area, our goals really are to are towards community-based stewardship. So working with the community, especially our descendants, to direct that stewardship of this area. Okay, next. And this is a little bit better look at this from the bird's eye view. So that yellow parcel down on the coastline is that area in Kauleolī. And of course, we are not even close to being the first people to work on the preservation of the trail in this area. Our community members and partners have been spending years and years and years out on the trails, caring for them, getting chewed up by opiuma and kiave, and to make sure that these trails are preserved and protected for the future. This is Uncle Roy Santana and Uncle Dennis Hart, who have been working for 20 years to keep these trails cleared and open and available for the people of Hawaii. Next. And also the Medeiros Ohana and our other wonderful community members that care deeply about this area and all throughout South Kona, and have been working very hard to keep them preserved and protected. Next. And that's some more of our amazing community members, and we're so grateful to them for all the hard work, decades of hard work that they have done in preserving not only the trail, but the cultural landscapes of all of South Kona. Next. And then I will hand it over here to Tanya, who's going to talk a little bit more specifically about some of the projects that we have going to collect baseline data. So just to have a better, deeper understanding of this area so we know how best to care for it in the future.
Thank you, Mandy. Aloha, Tanya. I want to just first of all thank Audrey and the Kona Historical Society again for this great opportunity. We're really excited to share some of our really cool findings from the archives. But before we do get into that, I'd like to first share a little bit of background on some of our current and future projects that we have going on at Kauleolī. So as Mandy had mentioned, in 2016, we acquired this land, and as part of our responsible stewardship, we are doing currently, and we've done some baseline documentation, and that will eventually help us with kind of understanding some of the cultural and natural resources that we have on this parcel. For Ala Kahakai, our philosophy when applying for any kind of federal funding is, we hope and strive to have projects that really reflect the intentions and the values of that community. So with that being said, some of the documentation will help with these community-led stewardship projects that we'd like to do with the community. So first, in 2019, 2020, we did do some documentation on the Alanui Aupuni. Mandy did share a little bit about that. It's our Hawaiian Kingdom Road. So we were able to go out there and do some detailed mapping and or detailed documentation and recording of the trail. We were able to get some really cool 3D photogrammetry images, and we have some LiDAR scanning coming up soon. We also are currently working on a cultural landscape inventory, and that is a project funded by the National Park Service. And a landscape inventory really helps with putting together this database containing all the information of a historically significant landscape. So that could be the location, these character defining features such as archaeological sites, historic structures, even ethnographic information or traditions of these areas. So we are currently compiling an inventory of these resources so we can proceed in these stewardship projects as well. We also have upcoming an ethnographic study, which has elements of oral history. So Mandy is going to be leading that project. And for this, we will be reaching out to any community members or families of this area. If you folks out there are connected to Kauleolī or even just some of the neighboring ahupua'a, we'll provide our information at the end of this presentation, but we really want to send that kahea out, that call out to everyone so that we can make sure that we include stories that want to be shared, that want to be preserved, that want to be part of this study. So ethnographic resources such as traditions or stories of these places is a culture resource for us that we want to be sure that we're preserving in perpetuity. We also have a shoreline survey for archaeological sites coming up along our shoreline, and lots of archaeologists here in Kona could probably relate. Archaeological sites along the shoreline are pretty vulnerable to climate change. So in efforts in protecting or preserving the information that these sites have, we're going to take a close look at some of the sites along the shoreline. So that's going to be coming up next fiscal year, 2022. We also have a great opportunity to get a plant survey, so a vascular plant survey for this parcel. So this will help with us understanding what invasive species we have on our parcel, what native ones that we could focus on protection. This area is just pretty much run by goats. So, we need to kind of strategize and see what kind of plants we have first and then how we can better protect them. And then working alongside our community trail groups, we have a trail crew with the Ala Kahakai that's been out there for the past couple of years doing some vegetation clearing and trail maintenance. Some of the invasive species like opuma, ekoa, even keawe can be very destructive to some of the archaeological structures. So like our Alanui Aupuni, to better preserve it, our crew is out there alongside with Uncle Dennis's crew and Uncle Roy, some of our community folks that have been spending years and years clearing that. So in any way that we can support them, we have been, so trying to. Oh, sorry, froze up a little bit. So in understanding our resources and sort of understanding the history of Kauleolī, we were able to explore various sources such as archaeological studies, that were done in the past, past oral histories. With Mandy's new project coming up on the oral histories, hopefully that would be able to shed light on additional practices or other resources that we should look into in preserving and protecting. We were able to also try to look for registered maps to locate trails or even Bahipana names, place names of these areas, and the ones that our community also might refer to when they're out there. Photographs, looking at historic photographs to really help validate and support some of the things that we're finding out in the field. So I'll be able to share that in a little bit. And even just mo'olelo from past research, anything we come across new from families would be really awesome too. And then also various families that, we were able to, come together and ask if anyone else knows other people that are from this area. And, we're writing down family names, and we hope to work with them in the future in this community led stewardship plan that we have for Kauleolī. It was great going into the archives. I want to thank also Julie, who was the one that led us into the archives. She's very accommodating. It was really nice to see that the facilities had climate controls, and like every archival repository should have. She led us onto the database on the computer, and we were able to punch in a bunch of terms. If you folks are looking forward to going in and exploring the archives, that's something really that we recommend doing, is writing down a whole bunch of terms, whether it's trails, plant names, ahupua'a, ranching, or even family names. Try to come in with that beforehand, so it can make your process of exploring the archives a lot easier. It was also really nice that we could bring our laptop and our scanner. So we were just like finding things, and just between Mandy and I, like inputting information and being able to scan our photos. And so it was a really, really nice process. And we got all this information in just like a 2-hour visit. So it went really smooth, and we're very thankful for just the wonderful, wonderful experience we had. So for Kauleolī, we're finding there are some information about Kauleolī, but a lot of it's very limited. So as part of a strategy for us to understand like the historical landscape or even traditions of the area, we were also putting in like key terms for neighboring ahupua'a, like Kona now, Ke'okea, Ki'ilai, Kealia, even Napopo and Ke'e up north. That was really, this Kona Hema area was pretty much very connected in terms of traditions and families, and just how everyone is related there too. So we didn't just stay limited to just Kauleolī itself. We really had to broaden and expand this the scope, I guess. Yeah. So this is an example with one of the photos we came across. This is at Hona now. This is in the 1960s. So, as we can see, that's sort of what we're experiencing out in Kauleolī today, where there's this, very, all this dense vegetation, the opuma, the kiave tree, and really the impacts it's doing to the structure. So, this was, in 1962. So, this was going on even early on. This is a photo from Ke'okea, or of Ke'okea from Ki'ilai. So this one's probably in 1956, but it was a really nice landscape shot. our shoreline, these coastal flats, the Pahoehoe Pali that we see there, it's very, very similar to what we see in Kauleolī. But then again, in the 1950s, we can see all of that invasive vegetation, the kiave trees, were actually brought in during the ranching period. So, so we can see that even in the 1950s, you have this spread of just vegetation. Another of Kealia and Honanau, or Honanau. Again, you can see how the kiave trees are pretty much matured by this point. So this map was actually, we got it from a different source, but this is a Kekahuna map, Kekahuna and Kelsey. This was done in 1956. So this is in our adjacent Ahupua'a to the north at Ki'ilai. For archaeologists, historians, anyone that wants to know information about the, certain places, Kekahuna was an amazing resource. He was a great contributor to Bishop Museum. He worked alongside Dr. Kenneth Emery. And, at one point, he was just really fed up of the destruction of Hawaiian sites. So he went out there and mapped it. And if anyone knows any of the Kekahuna maps, I mean, it's not just beautiful and pretty accurate, it's just rich in history. There's like this olelo, there's a lot of background information pertaining to the area. And then there's also like even just the true names of some of the heiau or even just some of the sites in that area. So this map was actually very useful for us. It came across to us because we wanted to really understand sort of, if you look to the right, that is our boundary between Ki'ilai and Kauleolī. There's that Ahupua'a wall. So areas of these historic walls were actually breached and by bulldozing, by some of the cattle operations or the ranching operations that took place in Kauleolī and at Ki'ilai. So we were able to go back to oral histories and learn, when did the bulldozing happen? And then also with this map, we can see, we actually don't see any breaches on this map. So it helps tell us a story. By 1956, there was no bulldozing going on. So this is one way that we, a big piece of the puzzle that really helps us with telling the story. Kekahuna also worked alongside Theodore Kelsey. So he was a great photographer during this time too. And a lot of these expeditions he went on with Kelsey. So it was really cool that in the archives, we were able to come across this photo. This was in Ke'okea. And it's actually maybe taken by Kelsey, but this is the cabin where Kelsey and Kekahuna stayed at during their map making in this area. So, as somebody that knew about this map and was going through all the photos, seeing this was like a part of history, of historians actually documenting history. So it was just really, really cool, for us, that do look at Kekahuna maps. It was like, oh my gosh, he stayed there. He actually stayed there. So it was really exciting to find these little gems in the archives at Kona Historical Society. So as we mentioned, maybe, through some of these documentations, we're able to come across some of the traditions that took place in Konahama. It was very, very similar in various ahupua'a just in this area. So we explored fishing, we looked that up as their key search, and we were able to come up with some beautiful photographs of this one here is at Kealakekua, and the second one's at KA. I also included the name of who donated. the picture too, because a lot of us might actually know some of these folks, and it's pretty exciting to come across some of the people that donated the photos as well. So hope you guys see that. So this summer, we actually started to do some field work, a field inventory for our cultural landscape inventory. So this involved site assessments and also refinding sites that we did know about, and also documenting sites that we didn't know about. So for one of the sites we came across is, we just kept coming across these battered areas. And so the battered areas, you know, from various sources, we've learned that they were processing areas. In some cases, it was processing areas for the ahuhu plant, which was used to stun fish when they were traditionally prepping for fishing and stuff like that. So, so this was really, really, you know, something that we wanted to consider to document, because we were finding so many of them on the landscape. And we figured that it would actually help with putting together this cultural landscape. So all the yellow is all of the battered areas we found. So there's 260 battered areas that we came across during this survey. And you can see that this practice was done extensively just across the entire shoreline. And it's, you know, something that we're like, you know, this is a great tradition that we want to recognize, but let's see how we can validate what we found in the field through these various resources. So, you know, with Mandy's project coming up, you know, we'll be able to address this sort of practice of using, you know, for fishing. We can use that in the battered areas when we talk to future informants. But then also we can use other kinds of archival documentations like photos. So exploring other repositories as well, we were able to come across this photo. And this is actually from Bishop Museum, but this is a great reference and a great example of how we use the archives to validate some of our field work. So this is actually at Hona now, and these men are processing that plant. And so this is just a wonderful example of how, you know, these archives, these photos can really bring to life what we're finding in the field. So, you know, any archaeologist might step over the battering and, you know, be like, oh, it's just sort of like just battering, they're everywhere, you know, but recognizing this practice, you know, and seeing like how much work it took to make this, you know, concoction for, you know, for your fishing. And so it's you know, very rewarding, and taking that time to just honor these little things that we find in the field and then validating it with other resources that we have. Another thing, ranching was very, very prominent in this area. Back to the Alanui Aupuni, you can kind of see, I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, but on the northern portion of the Alanui Aupuni, there are some cattle traps. And so through past oral histories and recent discussions with some of the family members, you know, they talk about how the cattle would be kept in these cattle traps to fatten up. And then once they're all fattened up and ready to get shipped out, then they would get driven from these cattle traps up the Alanui Aupuni. And we think that where Honanao Bay is right now, that orange line is what exists of the Alanui Aupuni. So when you get to the end of the orange line, you start to see there's that paved road, they call it the Pu'uhonua Road, and it goes all the way to Kealakekua Bay. So we think that might have been the original Alanui Aupuni. So, so what was told to us was that the cowboys would drive the cattle all the way up to Kealakekua Bay, where they would get shipped off. So in doing some of our research, but this is a great example of our Alanui Aupuni within Kauleolī. So we did document about half a mile section of trail. And this was one of the reasons why, we really wanted to preserve this stretch of land, was just because, this part of the Alanui Aupuni within the Kauleolī Ahupua'a has these beautiful causeways, ramps, and, it's just so monumental and, worth honoring. So this is a prime example of what the Alanui Aupuni looks like today. So with our archives, we did come across this beautiful shot. This is on the Alanui Aupuni, where the cowboy is. He's basically situated on that boundary between Kauleolī and Kealia. But this is during 1950. So this is a great find, again, to help bring that story alive. And so this was just like, Mandy and I were just so excited when we came across this in the archives. We were just like, woo, and we were dancing because, we talked to kupuna about it today. They share about, how their kupuna would go on the horseback and drive the cattle, and then you're talking with them. And then you see this photo and it brings you back to that conversation that you have with these kupuna. And, it just gives me chicken skin, just thinking of that. So, thank you to Kona Historical Society again for this beautiful picture. And then again, more photos from Kona Historical Society. This is, our cowboys on Kealakekua at the bay. This is back when there was sand. So they were, the two cowboys there with their lasso and their cow. And we have the vessel Humu'ula on the bottom picture. So again, bringing it to life and knowing that this was happening at one part of history. So yeah. And then we do know about McCandless Ranch and their presence in Kauleolī, and not just in Kauleolī, the adjacent ahupua'as and the neighboring ahupua'as. So the branch was established, I believe, in 1919 or 1914. And, we were able to find documents on, a little bit of the history that was written, I think, in the 1970s about McCandless Ranch. And I just thought that was great too for our cultural landscape inventory project and our ethnographic project. We also were able to find the bulldozer that was possibly bulldozing within these areas. And this is a great example of how they would clear the lantana to open up these spaces for cattle. So for these pastures, they would take a chain and it would help with removing a lot of the lantana. So. And then, of course, churches, we came across these two beautiful photos of Pukaana Church, and this is actually located on the boundary of Kealia and Ho'okana, which is just south of our ahupua'a. So it's a total possibility that our kupuna from Kauleolī was attending. This is the Makai Church of Pukaana. Today, the Pukaana is actually more Mauka off the Belt Road in Kealia. So, but this is the original structure. The remains of it is still there, but this could have been a place where a lot of our residents walked the Alanui Aupuni or traveled the Alanui Aupuni to attend this church. So, yeah. With that being said, I think I'm going to pass it over to Mandy. I think there are a couple more slides she wanted to share. So thank you very much. Thank you again, Audrey.
Okay, I just wanted to go back to this photo. we really were nerding out in the archives, dancing around. We were so excited to find this picture of the trail. And like Tanya said, it really brings it to life. It's one thing to pour through books and reports and read about how things are happening, but to see an image of somebody on their horse on the trail with their awesome hat is it really brings it to life for us. So and also I just wanted to talk a little bit about how these photos and photo documentation in general can be an amazing tool for historic preservation. I think I have one more slide after that. Okay. This is an example from farther up. This is the same trail, but farther up in North Kona, almost to the boundary of South Kohala. So this area was another area where we worked in 2017, the community approached us. They were very concerned because the major earthquakes in 2006 had done a lot of really bad damage to these beautiful causeways that were originally built in the 1860s, 1870s. And it was endangering the trail and the future of being able to use the trail. So the community approached us to if this was something that we could assist with, and we were able to secure funding to do a stabilization project on this this section of trail on this causeway. And it's hard to see from this picture, but it's actually quite high. I believe it's about 20 feet high off the floor of the lava fields there. But this I just wanted to give a little glimpse of how these historic photos can help us in archaeology and historic preservation. So this photo on the top is a Mission House's photo, and we were able to find the exact causeway that we needed to work on. So it gave us a really amazing glimpse into the form of the trail, into the stylized construction of the trail, because of course in every section of the trail there are these unique local signatures from the folks that were working in those areas. So it's not a uniform trail the entire way. You can see these differences in style as you go. So in the bottom photo, you can see where that big collapse had happened. And this top photo was really able to help us in our documentation and in when we were planning out with our masons how we were going to address these issues and provide the stabilization for this area. And it's just really fun to see as well, you know, it's fun to stand on the trail and be looking out from the exact same spot where that picture was taken over 100 years before, and to see that not too much has changed, you know. So it's a really fun tool to look at a landscape level. So this was a really helpful tool for us in this project. And although on the trail, on the Aleanuiapuni, in that very section where that picture is, you can go to the next slide. So we don't, one back, please, sorry. So we don't have plans right now. This section of trail is still in beautiful shape. This is outside of our, this is right over the boundary of Kauleolī, but it can serve as a really amazing tool if there is damage in the future. If something happens, we can see exactly that form of how this site, it's because the trail really is an archaeological site as well, how it needs to be treated in the future. And you can see also other little details. So you can see that worn path that the horses were taking on the trail. You can see the vegetation growth. You can see kind of some of the areas where there's more moisture in the trail, so that there's lichen growing on things. So it's just a really cool tool. And then the next slide. And it's amazing the craftsmanship of these trails and how amazing they look over 100 years later. This section is in amazing shape. It's just gorgeous, and we're so fortunate to be able to work out there. And so these historic resources, these photos, really help us to connect even on a deeper level to these stories that we're learning out there and continuing to learn. So thank you so much. And we really appreciate everybody's time today. Please feel free to reach out if there are stories that you'd like to share, or you have connections that you'd like to share with us to this area. And we will be working with our community, of course, into the future to make sure that this area is well cared for. Thank you so much, Audrey, and to everyone at Kona Historical Society. Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much, Mandy and Tanya. That was such an engaging presentation. I loved hearing, I heard some of it, of course, but I loved hearing about what you found and what you did with what you found. I know personally for me, it's a good reminder of what you look for when you look for research. You might not find what you were looking for, but you might find something else that has even more meaning in ways you didn't expect. And those reminders to sort of look bigger, look for context around what you're looking for, look for the ahupua'a that surround the one you're looking at, are really good reminders. I think you go into an archive and it can sort of feel overwhelming. What do you search? What do you put in? The possibilities are endless. And so it's a skill. It takes a little bit of practice. If anybody has any questions, I don't see any questions in the chat right now, but if anyone has any questions, you're welcome to go ahead and ask them. We are a little over time, but most of us are still here. So if anyone would like to ask anything, we'll go for another 5 minutes answering questions or just talking story about any of this. I know Tanya and Mandy would love if anybody had additional information or more connections about it. Awesome. So there's some thank yous in the chat that you guys should be able to see. I had a question. I was wondering, I was thinking about all the different things you found and sort of the way that research happens, whether we're doing it for our work the way you were, or whether we're doing it for our families. I'd like to throw out that, our archive can be used in multiple ways, whether it's a property that you own, or your own family history, or something you're doing for your work. There's a lot of ways to use our archive. So what is something you were relieved to find, something you were surprised to find, and what is something you guys are still looking for, a piece to the puzzle maybe that you really would like to find?
I'd say the first question was what we were relieved to find. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think just to go back to that trail photo, that's what we're all about, is these trails. And it's not super common to find photos of the exact trail. As you saw in the presentation, you can find photos from the area and adjoining things that are very interesting, but to actually see the piece of trail that we are super interested in, and to see that it's in still such good shape, and that was very exciting for us.
Yeah, I just like to echo that too, because right before finding that photo, we were doing some trail documentation of our section of that half a mile section of trail. And so when we saw that, we knew exactly where that was, you know, just from our time out there and, you know, all of the photographing and documentation that we've been doing and just our frequent visits out there. And so, yeah, it was such a really good find.
Thank you. Yeah, I know that one was really significant. Is there anything that you are still hoping to find? Any specific gaps that maybe more community members could fill? I know sometimes it's like you don't even know what you're looking for until you find it. Like Kikahuna's housing for his map project. But is there anything in particular that you're looking for or that you'd like to still be able to find?
I just can tell you from our recent visit to doing some of the cultural landscape inventory field work, there was a great deal of self-processing going on in that area. So, you know, we weren't able to come across much, unfortunately, in terms of photographs or I guess other archival information that we didn't have. So, but again, you know, we have future projects, you know, so family members that that would like to share about their kupuna, utilizing that area for salt processing, then that's something that would be really, really great for us. I don't know if Mandy, if there was anything else you wanted to add.
I'm keenly interested in the ethnobotany of the area. So I'd love to see some like landscape shots. I know that there were some individual trees in that area that were used as landmarks for fishing. I'd love to see if there's any records of those or plant uses in that area. And then, you know, we're just not finding a ton of information specifically about our little area right there, that parcel. There's a lot of information about the close by, but it would be great if we could find more really specific location information about Kauleolī Makai.
Okay, well, I see a lot of thank yous. It sounds like everyone had a very engaging session from the collection. So thank you to you both for sharing. I know I had so much fun and I actually want to go rewatch for the parts I was distracted in the chat or anything. So thank you so much for your time. We're going to end the meeting now. When the meeting ends, there'll be a little survey that pops up. So if you have a few minutes, it's just 4 quick questions. If you could fill that out, that helps for our grant funding and things like that. So if any participants who are still here would mind doing that. Thank you so much, Tanya and Mandy. We are so happy to have helped you in your efforts, and we're so grateful that you came today to help us from the collections. Everyone can stay tuned for next month. We're going to announce the topic very soon for next month's From the Collections. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.
Mahalo.